Well, Sri Lanka is in a state of emergency after catastrophic flooding caused by Cyclone Ditwah has left hundreds dead or missing. It's one of the worst flooding disasters to hit the country in decades, with more than 100,000 people forced to evacuate to emergency shelters. Let's get more on what's happening on the ground, and I'm joined now by Bismarck Swangin, spokesman for UNICEF in Sri Lanka. Bismarck, good to have you with us and really appreciate your time. Now, firstly, what can you tell us about the extent of the damage, from the floods and the landslides that were brought on by this cyclone, and where are the worst hit areas?
Well, the damage has been really extensive. There has been human loss, as you said. Infrastructure has been severely damaged. Roads swept off, bridges swept away. There is debris all over in many of the places across the country. And of course, rivers burst their banks, and so the flood waters are coming downstream as well. And the landslides have really, blocked, cut off people. Some areas still remain inaccessible. Communities have been displaced because even when the torrential rains and the winds have gone away, the water is still coming downway. And so we are continuing to receive warnings for evacuation because of the risk of the flooding.
Yes, and can you tell us how the search and rescue efforts are going in these very tough conditions that we're seeing at the moment?
Well, the government of Sri Lanka is leading the operations. And obviously, it is a very difficult and complex crisis. The armed forces have been put out in big numbers to try to save people. And also we are seeing the resilience of Sri Lankans with volunteers, communities supporting communities to rescue people. And so all of us, including agencies like UNICEF on the ground, are doing their best to provide immediate needs to be able to cushion communities from the immediate effects of the cyclone and the consequences that has come with it. But obviously, as the water recedes, the exact evidence of the damage is now being unveiled. And so we're hearing reports of bodies being discovered. And then, of course, the numbers that have been put out about how many have died, these are initial numbers. We don't know how they will turn out in the coming days.
Yes, and as we've been reporting, Bismarck, around 1 million people have been impacted, tens of thousands are in those evacuation centers. What are their immediate needs and priorities for those who have had to flee their homes?
So, first of all, the first 24 hours since the onset of the cyclone on Saturday morning meant that people couldn't go out at all. And that means access to the basics, the immediate food, water, shelter has been disrupted. And now we have a lot of water in the country, but it is not safe water. It cannot be, there's no clean drinking water. Farms have been swept away. People cannot move. The markets and the movement of goods and commodities has been limited as well. So we are seeing, particularly for children, obviously the risk of diseases because of lack of clean water. Nutrition was already very challenging for many families. You know that Sri Lanka is recovering from a terrible economic crisis from 2022. And so nutrition was already very challenging for many families. And we believe that these are going to be the immediate needs, but kids will need to go back to school. Luckily, schools were closed, but kids will need to go back to school in the coming weeks. And school infrastructure and health facilities are among those damaged. So those are some of the needs we are seeing on the ground.
Yes, and how challenging has it been for aid workers to be able to provide the relief that they need? Because as you mentioned, they don't have access to electricity, clean water, for instance, at the moment.
So luckily for many aid agencies, including us as UNICEF, we have staff who are based in the field. Who themselves were also cut off with, in some of these areas, but were able to locally coordinate support with the local partners to be able to reach the immediate neighborhoods. Obviously, there are still areas that are hard to reach, and we are working around the clock to be able to reach those areas with clean water, with nutrition supplies, with food items and other non-food items that they may require.
And just finally, Bismarck, of course, this is in the annual monsoon season. Floods do happen, but the Sri Lankan president, he described this as the most challenging natural disaster in Sri Lanka's history. So was the country caught off guard by the scale and intensity of that cyclone, but also what happened with the rains, floods and landslides?
Well, I think given the climate change crisis that the world is witnessing, there's no amount of preparation anywhere that can prepare you for this kind of moments. The low pressure, weather hovered over Sri Lanka for 24 hours, and the devastation we are seeing caused by only 24 hours is really colossal. And so that really speaks to the dangers we're seeing of climate crisis, complicated by, of course, Sri Lanka, a beautiful island nation as well. So with half of the population living on low-lying lands along coastal areas. And that is what is compounding and making this a really unprecedented crisis, as the president has described.
Okay, Bismarck Swangin from UNICEF, we do wish you and your colleagues all the very best when it comes to providing relief and recovery. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.